wow.
Yeah. No, I'll show you the photos, and it's just this insane thing. And that's the thing. What's interesting is that for these people, right? I mean, you're part of the big show. When you started this, right? When you started with DEFCON, where were you? Where were you in your life when you first attended your first DEFCON?
I didn't even graduated from college. I was an intern at Cisco. My college roommate had a friend who had been going to DEFCON for a while. And I'm like, this sounds fun. Here, there's a bunch of nerds there. Let's go to this thing. And I just show up. I didn't speak my first year. Sat down at a random table. Some guy was there. It's like, oh, hey, what do you do? I started telling him what I play with. At the time, Cisco was ridiculous. I was like 19 years old, and they gave me a $25 million lab and said, kid, you can do whatever you want. You're like free to us. So I'm telling this guy what I'm working on, and he's responding with like intelligent questions. He understands what I'm talking about. I had never really had that experience before. Not even at work. Because let me tell you, whatever I was looking at was not what my coworkers were. So that really got me into the whole DEFCON experience. It was like, here's a place that you can be. It's really chill. There's a lot of fun going around, a lot of drinking going around, but people are really smart. Like, okay, well, let's start hanging out here. And then over the years, I started giving talks and showing off the various toys that I was playing with. And people seem to like them.
When you give a talk, like a lot of your talks or many of your talks talk about just the fundamental insecurity of the world and the kind of gentleman's agreement we seem to have made in reality to try to fix things but admit that the world is in fact a destructive entropy vortex. And if we're lucky for a few moments, our stuff will stay up. What do you think when the audience comes in, when the audience packs a room like that, what are they looking for in one of your shows, one of your speeches?
I think they're learning to learn. I think that the audience is looking to learn something new. They're looking for an entertaining discussion on interesting technologies that at the end of the day are kind of important. And that's the thing that's at least changed for me. I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of my talks have had nothing to do with security. It's just like, yo, look what I can make that thing do. But, the internet's become an important thing. We've kind of re-architected our entire economy and, frankly, our entire society around it. And as I tell people, we've moved our entire economy around something optimized for moving pictures of cats. We're very good at moving pictures of cats, but that's not enough anymore. So increasingly my talks have gone into why is the internet such an insecure place? What do we have to do? Not in theory, not to satisfy academic stuff, but like real world, what do we need to change to make this thing secure? And I'll be honest, like it's why should the attackers have all the fun? My thing is I have no problem using thoroughly ugly hacks in the name of defense, because the status quo, the dogma, well, it doesn't work. We can see that it doesn't work. We have 15 years of data that says our standard approaches fail. So let's try some new and crazy stuff. And I don't know, it's a lot of fun to talk about, and people seem to pick up on that.
I had someone describe DEFCON as your Super Bowl.
Well, like my personal Super Bowl or like hacker Super Bowl?
Your personal Super Bowl. You're like, okay, this is because they were talking about the fact that you were, you weren't aware, as Nikita wasn't aware that the Penn and Teller had a hard limit. It was both a beautiful venue, a wide, large venue, and also severely limited by union and casino rules because they needed to move the Penn and Teller show after you. And the way they said it was, he's angry because this is his personal Super Bowl. This is his time that he brings in, makes more people understand his concepts. In general, people. What do you think of your speeches at DEFCON? So,
all year, all my best research comes here. all year I work on, what am I going to bring to DEFCON for the next year? What am I going to do for this particular event? Because it's where it began for me. I don't really see it as a Super Bowl or anything, but this, I my career started because I started speaking out here in Vegas and started coming out to DEFCON and showing off these toys. There were some unfortunate scheduling constraints. Accidents happened. Truly, DEFCON had nothing they could have done about it. There was just one slot of time that disappeared. What are they going to do? Tell someone else they have to leave? So it was unfortunate, but the show must go on.
When you as a speaker think about how you're going to set up a speech for DEFCON, what's your planning for it?
You finish asking your question. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead. Basically, I ask questions to get answers, not to hear myself. So, but the fundamental thing is for when I was in there, that was a slick show. There wasn't pauses. We weren't waiting for you to get your mind together. You didn't look out and say wait a minute, stop, check your slide. That was a performance that had either been rehearsed or had been really firm. So I just wonder what you prepared for.
My talks are stories. And that's the one thing that I advise everyone else giving a speech. You're telling a story to your friends about some cool stuff. Now, I have a particular difficulty, which is my talks, by and large, have 5 or 6 different subjects inside of them. And so these subjects often don't have obvious connections. But you know what? If I'm going to talk about them, I have to talk about them in some sort of sequence. So I have to develop some sort of tale. Just like you're making this documentary, tying together hundreds of hours, I have hundreds of hours of research that I have to tie together into a coherent explanation of the world. This particular talk at DEFCON was interesting because it had to be edited for time. But let me tell you, when you have a hard limit that's less than planned, you really think about, what can I bring to this talk that will hopefully stick with people? Now, I'm not delusional. I don't expect everybody to understand everything I have to say. But my thinking is, I have 5 or 6 different subjects. If I lose you, I'm so sorry. I'm going to be talking about something else in 5 minutes, so hang on. And that seems to work. People come up to me and they'll have the one thing that they got that they can take home and they can use or at least tell their buddies about, and they're happy.
When you hit up DEFCON, what's the highlight for you in terms of, besides outside of your speaking engagement, what's the highlight of DEFCON for you when you know you're heading down to Vegas this year?
Highlight to DEFCON for me is when it's 4 a.m, I bump into someone I've never met before, and they have something really cool they've been working on. And when someone's telling you about just this amazing hack that just it's lit up their life, that genuine joy is what got me here in the first place. It's what, once upon a time, everything in the security community was enthusiasts. We were a subculture. We were a sub-subculture. We were a bunch of nerds who played with these obscure toys that spoke these absurd languages that had these really ridiculous bugs. And that was it. That was us. Anywhere you went, that was it. The big thing that's changed is that hacking went mainstream. Not kind of, but massively, and has for quite some years. Rupert Murdoch's one of the most powerful men on the planet. He's being taken down by a hacking scandal involving journalists attacking telephone networks. Mothers are hacking their kids' grades from a 98 to a 99. A substantial portion of the population under the age of 30, and I mean majority, has read a significant other's email. Now, hacking is part of the skills you learn in life, like how you send a fax or how you buy a house. It didn't used to be that way. And when it was just us enthusiasts, when it was just us, we'd sit down, we'd hang out, and be like, so what are you playing with? And be like, oh man, so I found this thing. It's in the video port of a computer. Guess what? It's not just sending data, it's receiving data too. That's what I love about DEFCON. That's what I miss. That's what brings me back every year.
So actually, as one of the guys, I'm sure I see this, right? We have footage of you and Jeff walking along, and you're delighted to see Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
What have you thought of Jeff over the years, over the last roughly 10 years?
The flip side of hacking going mainstream is that hackers have been slowly wending their way into the halls of power. I spent a year and change fighting the SOPA and PIPA legislation. I got to tell you, it was if you think it was an interesting experience for me, some guy who writes code that sends packets, to walk into a congressman's office, you should have seen the other side. They're like, wait, you're not a lobbyist, you're an actual engineer? And at that point, they're like, okay, we may not be on the same side, but I can ask you questions and get answers, not filtered through the lobbyist filter, but the actual answers. And it was a shockingly useful experience for both sides. I mean, I'm a believer in democracy now because I've watched it work. I've literally watched individual congressmen change positions because of work that I've done. Getting back to Jeff, not to be speaking of Jeff, me, over the years, I've watched Jeff first go ahead and do work with the Department of Homeland Security, and more recently actually get into the security directorship over at ICANN. And this is fascinating to watch. I mean, here's this guy who created the HackerCon, and he's now in the positions where the underlying ground rules of the internet are maintained. The internet does not just run itself. There are huge numbers of interests that would love to change it, alter it, frankly, destroy it to meet their needs. There are systems that are out there. Maybe they're loved or maybe they're hated, but they're there and they keep the machine moving. And over the last few years, I've watched Jeff go into these positions where he keeps the machine moving, and I'm nothing but thankful.
Let's see. Do you have any thought about the contrast between DEFCON and the rise of Black Hat as a thing? Because, I mean, you get pulled into Black Hat, of course, and sometimes there'll be a Black Hat. I'm sure that's why you were like, do I really want to stay another day in Vegas? Is because what I found is that for some people, running Black Hat, like being over like 30 and running Black Hat and then running over to DEFCON and then being the Monday after DEFCON, most people are like, okay, that was, I want to go home. I miss my family.
Yeah.
But, we've watched Black Hat grow, get huge, get sold, and it still shares some kinship. How do you find switching between those two worlds?
Well, first, the fact that I'm here on Monday is not because I particularly love Vegas. I'm just too exhausted to go to the airport and fly home. There is a level of exhaustion where you're like, I don't even want to leave this bed. This is the first night that I can remember that I can get a full night's sleep, and it's mine. No plane tickets getting in the way of that, let me tell you. I call it do nothing con. Black Hat is run before DEFCON, but DEFCON is older than Black Hat by several years. At some point, it became apparent to Jeff that there was a market for training budgets to send people to DEFCON, but it couldn't be to DEFCON proper because of the reputation, well earned. DEFCON's, not so much the chaos it used to be. You know, we haven't poured concrete down the toilets in a very long time. But still, you know, there needed to be something else, another excuse to get people into Vegas. And so that's kind of where Black Hat was formed. My first DEFCON, there was a contest in advance. It was a security treasure hunt. You had to answer 7 actually kind of relatively obscure questions. And you'd get either a t-shirt or a pass to Black Hat. I chose the pass to Black Hat and came out to Vegas a few days early. And it was a lot of fun. Black Hat has always been the you know, dress a little nicer, drink a little nicer drinks, hang out at the Galleria bar at Caesars instead of, you know, whatever random bar at the Alexis Park. Slightly different world, but had always been legit. It was after my, I think it was 2002, my original Black Ops at TCP/IP talk at Black Hat. I began the room with the room about a third full. The room ended overflowing and, you know, going out the door. And after the talk, Keith Myers runs up to me and said, he was working for Black Hat at the time, and he says, "Dude, who the heck are you?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm Dan Kaminsky. I do strange things with network packets." He goes, "Look at your room. What is this?" I say, "Well, I wish I could go do this in Singapore." He gets this serious look on his face, and he's like, "I will make that happen." And he did. And that's how I ended up going on the international speaking circuit, meeting all these great people. And, you know, this came out of Black Hat, which itself came out of DEFCON. And the funny thing is Keith's still around. Keith's like the scene DJ. He is the DJ for hackers. You know, he played with Infected Mushroom the other day at the IO Active party for DEFCON. So there's, you know, that, at least for me, it's a little piece of continuity. Over the years, there's no way to deny it that Black Hat has absolutely been the more business-focused conference, the more management, security project manager, and it's always a challenge for, especially for Black Hat or even DEFCON. There's the people who are the enthusiasts, and there are people who want to be enthusiasts. And the game is maintaining the ratios. If a conference, what I explain to people is that there's, for any event, you have to look at what's the rate of new people versus old people. If only 10% of the population is new, the old culture is maintained and transferred to the new population. If 60, 70% of people are new, the culture becomes what they bring and not what was originally there. And so it is the fundamental challenge for any event as it gets popular to manage to basically curate its own culture, or else the values that made the event interesting in the first place disappear, and along with it, the original talent.
For you, do you actually partake in any of the other events like the contests or the vendors or other things like that?
I miss it so much. You know, over the years, I've gotten relatively high profile, and I am very happy and honored for all the obligations that come along with being a high-profile individual, but I do miss being able to just wander through the crowds and see cool stuff and watch cool talks. You know, I got a lot of stuff I've got to do. There's a lot of obligations, and I didn't even get to see the vendor floor this year. Just seeing the T-shirts. I happen to be a T-shirt nerd. I'm not complaining. This is a tremendous amount of fun that I get to have, you know, build all these crazy toys and fill Penn and Teller and show them off. But like I said earlier, you know, the best moment for me at DEFCON is always going to be at 4 a.m. when someone's showing off some really silly stunt that they built. And maybe it's good or maybe it's not, but man, they love it and they're enjoying talking about it.
So, you know, we have discussed some of this. I guess we'll bounce over into, as I recall you as an Olympic level drinker. That once you give the energy and do the thing, you just pound them back, and then people are leading a half-blind Kaminsky down the hallway.
Oh, that hasn't happened for a long time. At least a few days.
Do you think it's just part of the hacker culture in this way, that drinking is a big deal?
Let me tell you what the deal is with drinking. At least in this role. You know, the biggest problem with fame is distance. You know, can people relate to you? Can people just talk and chat and hang out with you? And part of that just comes with, can they identify? One of the things I used to do is I used to go up on stage at DEFCON and I'd bring up 24 packs of Coronas. And I'd say, all right, guys, here's the deal. You ask me a question and it's good, you get a drink. I can't answer it well, I have to drink. And it was great. I got to hand out all these beers, and it really broke the ice in a lot of these talks. But eventually you hit this balancing point. The more you drink, the more the kids are cool with you. But the more you drink, the more the corporates are like, man, that guy's a drunk. And so our community is actually a mix of both. So after a certain point, it was very much a thing where and you do all these stunts. You make sure when you're walking around, you know why you have 2 beers in your hand? Because that means someone can't hand you a third because your hands are full. So you do things to make sure that the drinking is managed. You can't be fall down drunk and respectable. Sad face.
Do you find that weird balance where DEFCON is this informal event, but now there's, I think it was the final count is like something like, I believe, 13 or 14,000 this year, and then in that we're supposed to have the people who are crazy and nutty, and then we're seeing stories where you are the savior of the DNS infrastructure, and do you think that it's just the only approach is to just keep trying to balance, or are you finding you're having to refine your presence at DEFCON these days?
The press wants a narrative. I can't tell you how much they want anybody, to be saving the internet. I was told by one reporter I'd known for several years, right after I was involved in fixing the domain name system. He goes, Dan, they're going to say you saved the internet. I was like, nah, no they won't. You can't save it. You can kick the can down the road, but no one's going to say it. No, they totally said that. Like, I'm getting newspaper articles that are calling me a superhero without the leotard. Like, and I'm looking at this. I did not intend I did like almost none of the work with fixing DNS. Do you have any idea? Like, I spent 2 days finding a bug. It was 6 months of hard work across the world to go ahead and prep something so that it could be repaired. And the deployment itself, I mean, quite literally, probably 20,000 pizzas were consumed deploying that fix. I did not eat 20,000 pizzas. My massive contribution was a couple days of work and a little bit of writing heard. But the press wants a hero. And that's the thing to realize. These are our games. This is fun, People use the word Super Bowl. Like, it's just a game. But it's not. Because this is the basis of our society now. We can't go back. I have never, in my career, exchanged an inter-office memo. I have no idea how they work. We've literally forgotten how we lived before these networks showed up and took over our lives. But the networks are all vulnerable to our silly games, to our toys. So, just like it's come here, have fun, play with our toys, on the flip side, man, our toys are a big deal. My friend FX gave a talk on, the fastest growing router manufacturer in the world. This company makes an increasing amount of the lifeblood of the internet itself. And you know what? These systems are written in a style that was like the 15 years that just passed never happened. The talk that was given the other day could have been given 15 years ago, and no one would have been surprised by the bug seen. And so that's the thing. There's a need to take what we have from all of this attack knowledge, all of these games we play, and respond to it and absorb it and do something about it. And that's why the corporate population has so significantly increased. Because at the end of the day, defense without offensive knowledge is worthless, is stupid. We call it compliance. That's not actually a joke. Like, the great challenge of compliance is, how do we occasionally do something that actually stops an attack once in a while? Because the people deploying it don't know what they're doing. They're just filling out a checklist. Maybe occasionally when they're filling out a checklist, they can do something useful. And so there's this tension in our scene between the games, the drinking, and the economy, the serious, sober business. And I'm not going to lie, it's changed things. There's a definite sense of an end to an era coming into DEFCON 20. No one really knows what comes next. It's not how we got here. Tomorrow is not yesterday. Black Hat is a preview, but DEFCON's not immune to it either. It's not 1998 anymore. It's not even just that we got old, although we did. That's the funny thing, before, what are the topics of conversation? Shellcode. Now what's the topics of conversation? I can't drink like I used to. I'm so tired. Gotta take naps. One of the things that, one of the things is you should just be able to go to random parties. Every room at the Alexis Park had a party. It didn't matter if you were there, you belonged, you deserved to be there. A substantial amount of energy that people have to spend at Black Hat and DEFCON is getting the invites to the parties. Because nobody can throw a party for everybody. Not even Microsoft can. And so what do? The parties... People need to interact. People in person. Not email, not text. But actually going out, having fun, having drinks. It's an incredible part of the human experience. And all this stuff used to be small and could afford to be fully inclusive. And the problem a lot of communities have is, as they grow, being fully inclusive means being too large to meet everyone, to see everyone, to interact with everyone. And it's hard. It's hard, just like all of these old friends that we haven't seen in so long, and there's only so much time in the day. I don't know. How do we make this scale? It's not just how do we make security scale? How do we make security people scale? How do we keep this culture around? Okay. I am an optimist. Maybe one of the few in this space. I think we can fix it. And what's more is I want to fix it. And I know it's a lot harder to do, but I think we can do it. I think we can fix the net. But that's my personal conceit. That's a thing about me. That's not everybody, and that's okay. Some people like blowing stuff up. Some people like drinking a lot with their nerdy friends. There's a culture that has formed over the last 20 years. That is us. And keeping that culture, holding on to that culture, I don't know, it's hard. Everyone goes through it, but it's hard. I've been doing this for 13 years, and it's been the highlight of my year. It's not gone, I'll tell you that much. But it's struggling. It is struggling.
Okay, you know what? I think we'll keep with that.
All
That's
right.
good, man.